Hi everyone, Andrea Fair here with Flying Free Ministries. I'm so excited to introduce you to Mandy Frost today. We have been an acquaintance over the last year or so, and Mandy is an academic life coach. So she works with parents and teenagers, and I possibly even college students, coordinating and helping them figure out what their plans are, and has been just instrumental in helping so many people just navigate the crazy waters of growing up. And so thanks so much for being here, Mandy. And yeah, we're just glad to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So you are currently living in California, but that is not a California accent. So tell us about your exciting birthplace.
Let me do the short, I'll do the short version.
Sure.
Yeah, I was born in South Africa and I met my husband there. He was a Zimbabwean, moved from South Africa to Zimbabwe to go farming and grew up, we had our 3 boys there. So they grew up on a farm in Zimbabwe. And then about 7.5 years ago, we moved to the US. So that's how I ended up in Clovis. So we've lived in New York, New Jersey, and now California.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's a lot of variety.
It
um,
is.
Mandy, your boys were all homeschooled, is that correct? And you graduated them all?
Yes,
Okay.
all homeschooled, and so the younger one now is at college. He decided to take 2 years of a gap year, so he started college this semester. The other one is working. The other two are working, and then the older one has his own online business as well as working full time. The young one also has a website online business, and so we encourage them to be entrepreneurs and to. We always said, try and like with video games and computers, we said try and don't always be the consumers, be the producers. See how you
Oh,
can be the entrepreneur in producing those things. And so we encourage them in that.
I love that. That's a great phrase. Yeah. Try to be producer instead of just a consumer. Because yeah, there is, and when you see how creative they can be and then they aren't sure what to do with it, I love that you have provided a way to help them and encourage them to walk that out. So as we talk about freedom and relating to others, um, tell me a little bit about how that makes you feel when you think of freedom while relating to others. What comes to mind for you?
I think we really get the freedom when we learn to let go of our own agendas in a more selfless way, where we become more, conversations are all about, relationships are all about conversations. And so
Mhm.
having more of a selfless conversation. And so when we let go of that agenda of wanting to always give advice or wanting to fix some situation, we spend more time in listening, really listening to the other person. We'll be more free to understand, to accept, to love, to not be so judgmental. And I think often we have an agenda of what I want to say. I want to say it my way. And so often, we think about it when we talking to somebody, we don't always want the solution or the answer. We just want someone to listen and someone to understand where they're coming from and to empathize. And so often in relationships, it, if we don't let go of our own agendas, we tend to become it's all about me. And so I think that would be the first thing I'd say for freedom, is to just be available for people where it's more about them and less about me.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so true. And I guess as a parent and as a coach, do you find this is not a question on the list, but do you find that you have a place that you can go where someone listens to you? Like, do you find that? And if so, where is that for you?
Yeah, I think that is a good question, because it's a challenge, particularly when you have your own business and sometimes you can feel a little bit out there on your own. And so I have a group of coaches. Well, you're in one of the groups that we have, which is great. And then I meet with a coach. In fact, I meet with 3 coaches every week. Or the one coach that actually trained me, I meet with him once a month. And the other 2 coaches I actually met them in one of our training cohorts, and they're from South Africa. And we meet every week and we encourage each other, we pray together, we see, what challenges they're having with their kids. And that is really important, to have that environment where they can also relate, like-minded, they're in the same situation.
Mm.
And I think that it's not a good place to be if you feel like you're on your own, you don't have a support group. And I think that is very important that we do. In fact, it's part of self-care. The more I think about it, having that support group and that network of people who we can really have those conversations with is part of our self-care.
That's right. And I guess it helps when we can hear ourselves in conversation, trying to take over or trying to fix or trying to put ourselves in there. It reflects my heart, and that, okay, Andrea, you actually maybe need to call a friend and just get a turn, because maybe you've been giving lots of turns. So that is interesting. Huh. And for you, Mandy, did you find it easy to relate to people throughout your journey, or is that like, have you had to develop a skill set in order to help you relate to teenagers? What's your journey about relating with other people? How has that been for you?
I think that is definitely a skill set that is learned on the job training as you go into seasons of life, different seasons of life, but you also learn it through sort of training and reading and, you know, doing coach training courses or educational programs. But if you think about it, when I was married and before I had children, I didn't really relate to little kids. They were just like, I didn't even know how to start to relate to little kids. And as I had my own, I could relate to them as they grew up, you know, the pre-teen years, the teen years. I learned those skill sets through life experience and through reading parenting books. You know, that's where the reading comes into it, or, you know, having support groups, talking to other parents about how they do certain things and communicate with their kids. But then I think also a large part of that is also with some training, and my coach training really helped me to relate, in fact, not just with teenagers or young adults, but all age groups for sure, all those practical coaching tools and strategies that you learn. And so I kind of look back and I see, wow, if I had known these things back then, I would have done a lot of things very differently. And so it's a combination as you learn, you know, through life experiences, and also as you actually do something, you know, more formal in training. So both of it, I would say.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, well, totally true. And I think it's important to be reminded that we're in discovery mode all the time, or learning mode all the time. Like, and sometimes I think I hit a new season of life and I'm like, oh man, I don't know anything. It's like, but that's how every new season is. You don't know anything. But then you learn from your experiences, and you reach out to those who've gone before, and you find those books and different things that have helped along the way, or have helped others along the way. And okay, so
Yeah,
now,
I think that process is continuous.
yeah,
Sorry, that
no, no.
continuous learning. I mean, I'm always reading books. The library is my best friend. Reading books, you know, parenting books, college books, how to help teenagers with college searches. I'm always learning. I can't get enough. And so that is, you know, constantly.
Yeah, I hear you. And I guess it's the reality of, as you implement those things, you find out what works best for you, or which ones you can see the most difference in with your clients. I guess that's maybe another question. How, when you're working with teens, do you find that there's some tried, tested, true things that will work with any teen? Or is it more like every person is so individual, you just have to really be in that moment and willing to put aside your agenda and hear what they have to say? Or I don't know, what are your go-to?
Yeah, I think there's basic principles of communication that works. Those principles work for everybody in those situations, but definitely specific things may work, you know, for different personalities, because we're different personalities. And so it's not so much giving parents advice as to what to do in specific situations, because, you know, their children are unique. It's more focusing on the principles that work for everybody. You know, what does that communication look like? What does it mean to really connect with another individual? And so those will work, you know, across the board.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that part of it is teaching maybe your teens how to communicate? Like, I know we had a conversation recently and they were frustrated that it took so long to figure things out. And I'm like, well, this is actually communication. Like, you have to give and take and listen and question, and you have to put in the time to get the result you're looking for. Is that something you've noticed in your line of work, or does it just depend on the situation again?
Yeah, I think if we want to teach our teens how to communicate, we need to be role models. And so it's important that we are, you know, when we lose it and we shout at them or we yell or we, you know, we apologize and we ask for forgiveness and we're modeling, you know, we mess up, we're not perfect. And so it's not so much this is how you communicate, watch me, this is how I'm going to show you how to communicate, but letting them see that we are human. And that is very powerful. And, asking for forgiveness, all of those things. Every day is a new day, and the Lord forgives us, gives us. And so there's a lot of grace in that as well. And so I think also showing them, going back to saying, well, not dealing with a reaction straight away in the moment, because then you're all sort of hyped up, and it's not the right time. So timing is important. And so the other way that we can teach them is to say, well, when you shouted at me or you overreacted in the situation, what could have been a better response? And sort of talk about those. I mean, that's I can talk a bit more about that at the end, is talk about those kind of things, is how could you have responded differently? And it's okay the way you responded. Don't sort of shame them or anything like that, because that we all make mistakes. But giving them ideas of how they could do it better next time, I think is one way of showing them when you are not in the moment.
Right. Isn't that the truth? There is a huge, yeah, the truth of timing, I think, is imperative. We have one of ours is fairly strong-willed, and so over the years you see the growth and the change, and you just want to be like, just bless them and bless them, and to be able to come back in that, yeah, later and say, okay, so did you see how what was off and what would you do different next time, has been a really helpful tool for us. Um, and then you have the ones that I find are more inside themselves, right? Like, so actually sharing is really hard for them and not something they do easily. And so that has been a challenge for me. Do you find that when you are coaching teens that you have some that are just, how do you get the ball rolling in those conversations when they're not really sure they want to have a conversation with you?
Well, I think with coaching, it's important that the students that I do coach want to actually be there.
Okay.
Because it's very, they've got to take ownership of that, because it's very important that they want to change and they want to grow. They need to see the reason why they're there. Otherwise, it does become difficult to work with them. And so when I meet with students, I first meet with the parents on Zoom. I get to know, more about, the child, what they're wanting to gain from the coaching, and then I actually meet the student before we make a decision. And so we work out whether we can work together, whether we can have a good partnership, and if the student is really, all in, because I find that is really important. That's important for the success of coaching, because it's something that they need. And so some students, if they're not ready, I'll say, well, let's wait a few months. Let's come back when you feel ready. And then, because it just makes more sense to do that. And so with regards to different personalities as well, you're talking about, how people respond and differently, learning more about who they are, doing those personality assessments are really helpful, because you get introverts, you get extroverts, you get those who, don't like conflict. And then you have a personality in the family that's more of a challenger, and then you have a people pleaser, and you have all these sort of different personalities. And so it's important that they learn more about how they respond and why they respond the way that they do. And that's a really powerful tool to use in coaching.
Oh, that's interesting. Because yeah, I know for myself, when I learned that I was an introvert, I was just like, oh, okay, well that makes sense on a lot of fronts. Like, and it was empowering, or even I forget the author, but Sensitive and Strong. That book also was just opened my eyes to like, oh, okay, so people have called me sensitive, but I just felt offended, or like I feel like I'm not allowed to have feelings, and that's not what it is. And so it was a very empowering book to learn more about my own personality, so I could even encourage other people that I could see similarities in. Mandy, for you, you're a parent and you're a coach. Do you see those roles as similar or different, or like, are they like this in your world, or how, what's your journey been like in that department? Like, do you find there's certain things that are just parents do and certain things coaching does, or is there like a blend happening for you?
I think that if parents can be more coaches, I think they would be a lot more able to connect with their kids more, because it depends how we want to define a parent. We're wanting to empower our teens to be self-directed. We want to be able to rather be more of a mentor as opposed to a manager, and help them to take control of the things that they need to take control of. And so when you talk about parent, I think there need to be more of mentors and coaches, because our role changes as our kids get older. From when they're little, we're telling them what to do. Don't touch the hot stove. We're a lot more in control because we're protecting them, because we're teaching them the dangers of the world. As they grow older, we've got to we kind of take a little bit of a step back, but more of a not so much directing, but more empowering them to direct themselves. And so it's more about helping them tell themselves what to do, as opposed to we telling them what to do. And so that they begin to realize that they are the capable experts, and they can find their own solutions. Their ideas do work. They can solve their own problems. Because if we continue being the capable experts, they know we're the experts. I mean, we're super moms to the rescue, and we've got a lot of wisdom, we've got a lot of experience, and we kind of want to fix everything. But if we continue to do that, we're not going to empower them to self-direct themselves. And so we become more of an empowered parent when we empower them to take more control. And we often, as parents, we worry about the things that we can't control. And instead of giving them more direction as to how they can start worrying about the things that they need to actually worry about. And so, yeah, it's very empowering. So becoming more of an empowering parent.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah. And I mean, we have 2 older teens in our home. And so just the shift we're in the shift. And so it's just like doing the dance between parenting, coaching, mentoring. And I hope it gets more comfortable. But I think that it's a switch in their minds too, right? Like, what you used to tell us what to do and now you're not. Or sometimes they want more direction, and we're like, actually, we want you to think out the pros and cons, and what do you think would be the best choice, and what is, if it doesn't work out, then is it really that the end of the world, or is it possible that it's recoverable, and help them and yeah, like you said, empower them to see that they have good reasoning skills and they are able to move forward, and to give them the grace to know, you know what, honestly, if you mess it up, no one will die. And there is grace and there is forgiveness, and we will continue together with you. So that is, yeah, I like that, that shift. It's so important. And like you said, it invites that relationship, that conversation to begin too, to see them as they see you in a different role. So what inspired you to become an academic coach?
I guess I could say my sons. I mean, just kind of helping them with figuring life out. And I was also very involved in a homeschool co-op group where we would do classes. The parents would come and do classes for the kids. And I did some apologetics classes, some entrepreneurial classes, as well as, learning and study skill classes. And I think it just kind of I kind of grew into that place that I quite enjoyed. And I mean, before I had teens, I was like, I can't relate to teens. Like, they're just awful people, but they're wonderful. They have so much to offer, and they're so creative. And I know how much I struggled at school and just generally figuring life out. And I had no self-direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to study or apply myself. And so I kind of thought this would be a really neat place to work, just with helping kids through this process and this confusing, challenging time that they're going through. And so I think just going through that with my own kids and preparing them for life, and I guess just seeing the challenges that parents face today, and knowing that it is challenging preparing our teens into adulthood. And so I kind of thought, well, that'll be a really cool thing, because now that I was coming to the end of my homeschool days, I was kind of thinking, well, okay, so what do I do now? I need to start thinking about my career, because I'd homeschooled all my life. And, and so it was a wonderful experience. I loved it. It was just amazing. One of my best years of my life. And so I thought, well, I'd love to be there to support parents in this journey and walk with them together. Because what my coaching, what I do is, it's kind of a very holistic. So I go about it in a very holistic way, where parents are also getting a lot of value, because I am, I talk to parents throughout the coaching process. We meet on Zoom, we discuss ways that they can support their teen during the coaching process. And so I'm not just coaching the teenagers, I'm also coaching the parents. And so I just found that really important for it to be successful, so that they have some support of how to move forward, and that we have like a 3-way partnership coach, parent, and teenager. And so that's pretty unique.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. And are you helping those students, like, do each come to you with a different destination, or is it a program that is laid out? Can you tell us a bit more about your programs that you have?
Well, I do one-on-one coaching wherever the student is at, whatever they are struggling with. And mostly what I'm getting is not really so much careers. It's more, struggling with motivation, confidence, insecurity, fear of failure. Those kind of things need to be looked at before you even think about what you want to do and where you want to go, because it's more self-exploration and self-awareness helps the student know more about, okay, I have more of a direction. Once you've kind of looked at those hidden things that are getting in the way, those mindsets. Mindsets are, in fact, that's probably top of the list. Negative thought patterns and how they see themselves, their perspective on life and negative mindsets. And having a fear of failure, so when you spoke about making mistakes and we show our kids it's okay to make mistakes, that's a big one for them. They're scared of failing. And I always say you need to fail in order to succeed. It's about failing forward, right? Learning through the experience. And so that's the one-on-one coaching. The Go program that I have is I designed a group coaching just to offer another avenue for parents, those kids who actually want to interact with other kids as well, because I do the breakout sessions and they actually coach each other. And that is the most fun part of the whole class. And so having that interaction, and it deals with all of those things. It's 15 weeks, so it's mindsets, motivation, study skills, trying to be more self-directed, responsibilities, that sort of thing. And then they have a book and they coach each other. And so I deal with all of those things. I do careers as well. So we do a bit of, what are your values, interests, strengths, with the personality assessments. And so they have more of an idea of actually the possible careers that could work for them. We explore that a little bit in one of the classes, but it's not a specific career class, because I find that you've got to do the self-exploration before the careers. It's just the way it works. They need to figure out who they are before they know where they want to go. And so that's a great way of, if parents want to have that group coaching, that's kind of why I designed that program.
Wow, that's incredible. So where can people find this information at, Mandy? Have a website or?
Probably my website, mylifecoach360.com. That's probably the best way to get hold of me. I am on Facebook, Academic Life Coach Mandy Frost. They can take a look there as well. Or just send me an email. All my details are on those websites.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you so much. So as we wrap up here, is there any advice that comes to mind when you think of teens struggling to communicate with parents, or parents trying to connect with teens? Do you have anything that comes to mind for those folks and how they're growing in relating to each other?
I think if parents, and I'm talking to myself as well, is if we can focus more on connecting and less time correcting. Because often what happens is we spend more time correcting and less time connecting. And so when there's time that you need to correct, maybe stop and wait and think about, have I connected today? Is this the right time? Is this something that can wait? Because we often want to just deal with it straight away. And so that's I think that's what I want to leave everybody with, and knowing that timing is important and connecting first as opposed to correcting.
That's really important. Thank you so much. I need that. I was noticing that yesterday. My kids came home from school and I'm like, hey, yay. And then I'm like, I only get them for this many minutes before they all go everywhere. So do this, do this, do this. I'm like, oh yeah, there we go. And we did have connection time later, but it was like, okay, this is a habit I have as a parent, and I need to change it to how can I connect? And I think also to lean into Holy Spirit for that timing, and for that when there is enough time in the evenings, in the day, to connect in a way that's going to matter in a good way. He's also been encouraging me to enjoy quality moments with my kids instead of quality time, because as I am getting to know my teens, they enjoy being with me for moments, not necessarily chunks of time. And so to release them to enjoy their own friends and things like that. But thank you so much, Mandy.
Yeah,
Anything
thank you.
yeah.
Well, just that if we can just pause, wait, and just stop. because we are busy and our minds are going all the time. We're thinking, if I don't say this, I'm going to forget. And so I understand that it's not always easy, but if we can just focus on just taking time to breathe, pause, just wait, get ourselves into that sort of way, because I know it is not always that easy for sure. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Willingness to connect. I love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate your wisdom and your insight and the work you're doing. And I think, wow, what a super valuable program at our fingertips. And so I hope people go and check out your website and the information you have there. And thanks again for your time.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.